educator, entrepreneur, and author with a long and accomplished career. Dr. Solomon earned his PhD in physics from Columbia University and began his work at the United Technologies Research Center before founding 5 innovative companies focused on clean fuels, process measurement, radiation detection, and science education. Over the course of his career, he's been awarded 20 patents, authored more than 300 scientific publications, received the American Chemical Society Henry H. Storch Award for his contributions to energy-related science, and served as a keynote speaker at major international conferences. But what brings him here today is his current mission, warning the next generation about the threats posed by unchecked science and technology. Inspired by Stephen Hawking's prediction that humanity could face extinction within 100 years, Dr. Solomon is using storytelling to make scientific issues accessible to non-scientists, especially young people. He's written 2 award-winning STEM books for students and is now working on a novel for broader audiences titled 100 Years to Extinction. Through his writing and public engagement, Dr. Solomon is asking a big question. How can we, as a global community, respond to the very real dangers from climate change and AI to genetic engineering and nuclear weapons that we've created? And how do we act before it's too late? With that, I'll turn it over to Dr. Solomon.
Emily, thank you.
Of course.
Thank you so much for that very kind introduction. So I am going to be presenting a PowerPoint presentation. Okay, so my presentation is called The Tyranny of Technology, and the picture shows some of the worries that I have. The background is the decaying Thwaites Glacier caused by fossil fuel burning, creating the climate crisis. And then genetic engineering, the worry there is uncontrolled engineering to create a new superspecies. And the other danger is AI, maybe creating sentient robots that take over the world. So those are my worries. What am I doing about it? So the picture is me. This is going to be the author picture that I use in my book, 100 Years to Extinction. So that is one of the things I'm doing. I've written a book. It'll be out in the first part of September. It is about 3 young people who recognize some of the dangers we face and commit themselves, promising to do at least one thing to help save humanity. The other thing that I've done is to create a website and a whole bunch of social media, all with the name 100 Years to Extinction, that describes the threats and suggests some solutions that can be done to avoid this extinction within 100 years. So here's the inspiration for the name. This in 2017, astrophysicist Stephen Hawking made the prediction that humans will not exist on planet Earth within 100 years. And the things that he worried about was whether their generation and their children will have a home on planet Earth. One of the things he suggested is we ought to colonize another planet, so at least human civilization will exist somewhere in the universe. The things he worried about were asteroid impacts, epidemics, population growth, fossil fuels, nuclear technology, artificial intelligence, and genetic engineering. I would add one more, the internet and social media, to that list. So some things have been done to address these threats. NASA has started a DART program in which they demonstrated the ability of a rocket sent off from Earth, aimed at an asteroid, a dangerous sized asteroid, many, many million miles away. And that demonstration showed that a rocket impact would be enough to send an asteroid off course if caught early enough. And of course, we monitor the skies and tag every single asteroid that might be a problem. He worried about epidemics, but the COVID-19 pandemic and the response in terms of creating a vaccine using genetic engineering within 3 months, when previous vaccines have taken years, seems to be a good harbinger that we've got epidemics under control. On population growth, well, a number of countries like our country and Japan show that young people are self-regulating. They're not producing a lot of children. And those two countries are not producing enough to maintain the population. So maybe population growth will take care of itself. So that leaves us with 5 technologies, which I call the tyranny of technology. King Charles of England recognized this issue and said, "There is no doubt that we live in an age of unprecedented and sometimes terrifying technological advances, where the speed of advance so often outstrips the necessary ethical considerations." So I liken this whole situation to the tortoise and the hare. Here we have the centuries with our different technologies being invented along the timeline. The hare, representing science and technology, has raced ahead from the 19th century into the 21st century with genetic engineering and AI. But the poor tortoise moves so slowly and is still stuck back in the 19th century with his ability in politics and society to regulate these technologies. And that is the problem. So let's look at the technologies. The 19th century brought us fossil fuel technology, the burning of the fossil fuels to produce carbon dioxide that enters our atmosphere. So fossil fuel technology has wonders and dangers. The wonders are transportation, airplanes, automobiles, ships, and the generation of electricity with power plants. So wonderful things that have made life far more easy and comfortable to our human population. What's the danger? Obviously, global warming. That CO2 enters the atmosphere. It intercepts heat that is attempting to escape Earth and sends half of it back. So that has resulted in...
Today we are threatened with higher temperatures and more violent storms. The higher temperature is melting glaciers. If the Thwaites Glacier, called the Doomsday Glacier, melts,
and if the ice shelf under it melts, and if other glaciers melt, we are looking at an 11-foot rise in sea level. So we're looking at floods, wildfires, and superstorms, all from the increase in temperature. We have so far a 1.6 degree increase in temperature, and the prediction is that by the year 2100, we could have a 4 degree increase in temperature. So there's Greta Thunberg, the famous 16-year-old that started strikes in front of the Swedish parliament. And she says, I want you to panic. I want you to panic as if the house is on fire, because it is. So that is our house on fire. What are the fixes? Well, we have solar power, we have wind power, we have electric vehicles. All of those things, as we implement them, will slow down the evolution of carbon dioxide and stop the increase in temperature on Earth. But there are some other technologies that we should consider. Fusion power would be an absolute game changer. It's the fusion of hydrogen, deuterium, the process that goes on in the sun that produces energy. We have gotten to the point where we have produced excess energy in experiments with fusion power. The scientists in this area predict that maybe by 2030 or 2050, we will have fusion power plants. That'll give us unlimited clean electricity generation. We can use that electricity generation to do something like cultured meat, where the meat is grown from stem cells. If we do that, we could free up enormous acreage that is now used for grazing cattle. And that acreage could be used for other food growth, or we could plant lots of trees that would take up carbon dioxide. The other technology that might be interesting is synthetic lumber. We could use synthetic lumber made of waste materials instead of cutting down trees. But the problem is there's more than one house on fire. And that is the other technology dangers that we face. Whoops. Sorry about that. So the 20th century, mid 20th century, brought us nuclear technology. The wonders of nuclear technology are fission energy, fusion energy, nuclear medicine. The dangers, of course, are nuclear weapons. In the 1945, at the end of World War II, we dropped a hydrogen bomb in a test in Trinity, and we dropped the hydrogen bomb on 2 hydrogen bombs on Japan. The developer of atom bombs on Japan, the developer of the atom bomb said this when he witnessed Robert Oppenheimer witnessed the demonstration at Trinity. Now I become death, the destroyer of worlds. So today we have the hydrogen bomb, which is up to 100 times more deadly than the original atomic bomb. We actually have diagrams showing how these things work with the detonation of an atomic bomb with radiation compressing and igniting the deuterium fuels in the lower part of the bomb. setting off a secondary explosion. The largest weapon ever tested had a damage radius extending to 150 miles. So there's a map with a 150-mile radius, a hydrogen bomb on New York. Guess us guys here in Hartford as well. Right now, there are 9 countries that have 13,000 nuclear weapons at their disposal. A very dangerous situation. And in many cases, in the hands of a single individual. That situation really needs to be controlled. In 1947, I believe, the Bulletin of the Atomic Scientists created something called the Doomsday Clock to keep warning us about the possible doom. So the doom that they worried about was the atomic bomb. And when the Doomsday Clock was started, the time was 7 minutes. They've expanded their outlook to include other dangerous disruptive technologies, and now the Doomsday Clock is set at 90 seconds. So our wonderful and horrible worry is this how it ends? And we really need to do some things to make sure that doesn't happen. Okay, so moving on to the later part of the 20th century, we've got the internet and social media. So the benefits, social communication and information at our fingertips. The dangers are lies, crime, conspiracy theories, and terrorists communicating to create acts of terrorism. So here's one of the dangers: bullying, cyberbullying. This poor kid is the object of the cyberbully. But the other danger is, what are we doing to our kids' mental health when they spend so much time on their phones, on the internet, instead of communicating person to person? Another danger is the terrorists, which I've mentioned. And then finally, something I called the fallacy virus, in analogy to the real physical virus like COVID-19. The fallacy virus are the lies. So the COVID virus enters our circulatory system and moves down the circulatory system into the lungs, and the lies enter our information system and move down the information system, which is the internet. And then the physical virus duplicates in our cells and then makes the body sick, while our lies duplicate in the social media, the Facebook and Instagram and YouTube, and those lies then become a reality, which make our society and our democracy sick. Okay, now we move on to the 21st century. A little bit of technical difficulty, sorry, with genetic engineering. So here's a molecule of the DNA, and the genetic engineering has to do with modifying that molecule. We've got a wonderful, wonderful new tool called CRISPR-Cas9, which is used to cut and paste pieces of DNA almost with the ease that we can cut, paste words in a Word document. This was a technology that was developed a few years ago, and the Nobel Prize was awarded for this technology. So the wonders of genetic engineering, vaccines produced in record time. We're looking at potential for cancer cures and other cures for genetic diseases and genetically modified foods. But we're also looking at the dangers from mutant humans and bioweapons. When our buddy, the astrophysicist, looked at this technology, he said, because genetic engineering can be done in small labs, it's difficult to regulate, posing a potential danger for accidents or malicious misuse. That was the quote from Stephen Hawking. The wonders of the CRISPR-Cas9 or other genetic engineering was the ability, when the COVID-19 pandemic hit, to use genetic engineering to cut off a piece of the virus, which is the little protein spikes that appear on the surface. They take the RNA for the protein spikes, put it into the virus, it goes into the body, the cells produce it and produce little bits of the spikes that circulate through our body. That stimulates the immune system to develop the ability to fight and detect and destroy the spikes, but also the virus with the spikes attached. But we've also been able to use genetic engineering in a hobby kit to modify frogs. That's dangerous when hobbyists can use this kind of technology. And a doctor in China used the technology to modify human babies. So are we going to see designer babies, giant shoulders, and bioweapons? That's the danger. And that's the danger that we have to worry about. Jennifer Doudna, who was one of the Nobel Prize winning developers of CRISPR-Cas9, said, the idea that you would affect evolution is a very profound thing. Yeah, a very profound thing. And finally, AI. So the wonders are the ability to do research, especially medical search, producing new proteins, automation, and problem solving. The danger is things like deep fakes and possibility for human extinction.
Astrophysicist Stephen Hawking gave us this dire warning in 2017.
Okay.
Astrophysicist Stephen Hawking gave us this dire warning in 2017.
Now that's not me. That is an AI created me from my photograph and an AI voice. Kind of looks like me, kind of sounds like me, but that's the kind of thing you can do with genetic engineering. This is something else you can do. Oops. This is an AI music. This is a music video.
A clock is ticking soft and low. 100 years is all we know. The earth is crying out in pain to stop the tyranny of technology's game. 100 years before it's too late to control the forces that threaten our fate. Undo the codes we've written wrong and turn the tide before it's gone.
Now that video, the video part was created by humans, but the lyrics and the music and the singing were all AI generated. This was done by my videographer, Kaio Heng. I didn't ask him to do it, but he's very interested in AI, so he wanted to see what would happen if he took the materials that I created for the video called The Tyranny of Technology and fed it to an AI music program. When he showed it to me, I was just blown away. So here is the father of AI, Geoffrey Hinton. He left Google, where he worked, because he was very worried about the dangers of AI. He said it is hard to see how you can prevent the bad actors from using it for bad things. And he's right. So one of the bad things is a combination of the internet and AI, where the AI is a program that designs the AI, the social media to deliver content to people that increase user engagement. So it delivers excitement, mayhem, crime, catastrophe, rather than dull, uninteresting happiness and good things. Well, the result was the crisis of the Rohingya persecution in Myanmar. Well, I asked the Google AI, Google now has AI as a standard, whether AI could achieve sentience. We worry if it achieves sentience, maybe it decides it doesn't like the humans around and gets rid of us. Well, Google's AI say some experts believe AI sentence to be theoretically possible, but apparently, according to a Google engineer, it's already achieved some level of it. We asked ChatGPT, and they said, nah, it's not yet here, perhaps not anytime soon. So if we consider that the human brain is a chemistry system that has 86 billion parts, 86 billion neurons, can a system created with computer chips, transistors, duplicate what the human brain does? Well, the current high-powered NVIDIA chip has 208 billion transistors, and ChatGPT has over 6,000 trillion transistors. That would make quite a powerful brain if transistors can mimic what the neurons do with chemistry. Well, Stephen Hawking again, the development of full artificial intelligence could spell the end of the human race.
Regulations to keep us safe. Either technology could lead to human extinction.
So, is there a new story of evolution?
Modern man appeared on the scene 300,000 years ago. Will a new genetically created superspecies appear and eradicate humans? Will the new superspecies be eliminated by robots? Maybe the robots would do a better job of managing our precious planet.
So here's an imagined conversation. The robots have taken over. We're gone. Us humans have disappeared. The robots have now colonized the whole Milky Way. And one of the topics of conversations with the robot is, isn't it amazing that our civilization was started by animals? So what should we do? Well, one of the things we've got to do is teach the kids. The education has got to be including all of these threats to us and what they can do to eliminate the threats. So education is at the top of the list. We need international attention to regulate these technologies. We need to lobby our own Congress. We need to build an international movement, and we all need to be activists. We need to join together as the Earthling tribe. So here are two suggestions. Back in the 60s, the civil rights movement was huge. We need to create a Save Humanity movement like the civil rights movement. And back in the 60s, they created a very effective Peace Corps. We need to create the Earth Corps of young people to go out into the world to spread the information about these threats we face, and to educate everyone on what they can do and how to join together to prevent our extinction. We need to make Earth great again. The clock is ticking. For more information, I have my book, 100 Years to Extinction, which is coming out in September. And I have a YouTube channel, an Instagram channel, and my website. All of these things have information on the threats and what we can do about it. So thank you all for your attention.
Thank you so much, Peter. That was great. I really loved the video. It was so hard to tell that it was AI sometimes. Again, if you have any questions, please feel free to drop it in the chat if you're not able to unmute or raise your hand. This will also be recorded on our YouTube channel, so feel free to share it once it is posted. I actually have a question. And then we'll when talking about AI and seeing that video, one of the first things that popped into my head was, is AI in itself bad, or is it the way that we use it for intent, or like the human aspect into it?
There was a fascinating play at TheaterWorks, a two-person play. The one person was an old lady in a bathrobe who wandered around her apartment and very cantankerous and fired all of her caregivers that her son hired. So finally, the son hired a robot. And the play is the interaction between these two people. There are two themes. One is the friendship between the old lady and the robot, and how the robot, with its intelligence, helps the old lady back into the world. The other theme is the humanization of the robot. And at the end of the first act, the robot is so frustrated with the old lady that she takes her hand and a glass and crushes it, and it's scattered all over the stage. So the other message is this humanization. We don't know. Can AI systems become sentient? And if they do become sentient, can they decide, I don't want you to shut me off. I'm going to eliminate the guy who can shut me off. We don't know that. That's a gamble. And this surveys of experts in the field, 50% of them said there was a 10% chance that AI would be the elimination of human beings. But then there's another interesting question. Do we care if our civilization is carried on by robots?
Zanita, I see that your hand is up. Feel free to come off mute.
Hi, my name is Zenaida Gonzalez. I am a resident leader with PT Partners. Hi, I really wanted to appreciate the video that you created. And a lot of things did run through my mind, thinking of AI in the future. And as we go through the different stages of changes, a lot of times we just have to adapt to the unknown, because we do live in fear every day already. With the new technology opening up them fears in the older generation, I think it's more of the adaptation and the evolvement of the society to understand what's next. Because if we go backwards, we're only going to be doing more harm to what's already here and already moving forward. Because even with this step right here, in 20, 30 years down the line, our kids are going to be sitting on the same table discussing a different change of the unknown. And I don't know, I would rather live with the understanding of trying to move forward than to being scared to explore. I don't know if that makes sense here, but that's what I was getting when I was listening to your video. Yes, we have changes. It is a scary world. There are things that's going to go wrong. I don't think, personally, I don't think robots are going to take over. We always have a rebellion. If you go back to the 60s, there will always be that group that's going to stay strong regardless. Thank you.
So one of the companies that is developing AI systems made the case that every AI system should have a constitution, some guardrails on what is it allowed to do. That's not a hard thing to impose on the AI systems. They should not be involved in murdering human beings, for example. That'd be an easy one. And I don't think anyone would object to putting that into an AI system. They probably should not be involved in controlling weapon systems. So the case was made by one of the AI companies. We put a constitution into our AI systems. Everybody should do that. And I think that's one of the controls that ought to be put on.
Hi, I'd like to ask a question. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, I'm Maria. I don't know why I can't see my picture, so I didn't think you could see me. This is what I think. I think when you look at human history and you look at what's happening in the world right now, in thousands of years, we've done some pretty horrific things, and we continue to do pretty horrific things. I think the AIs are going to be communicating with each other, obviously globally. And I think it's going to take them less than a nanosecond to figure out that our species can't seem to pull this out. And I do believe they will actually eliminate us. And my hope is, because my fear and my upsetment is, we're taking all the other species with us, right? So my hope is, if the AI do in fact eliminate us, that they in fact become excellent caregivers of the planet and the other animals can thrive. Because we've had our shot and it isn't looking pretty. Anyway, that's my opinion.
Anyway, I should mention that the AI, the music video is available. Either go to our website, to the music tab, or you can go to YouTube, and it's available on YouTube at the 100 Years to Extinction -1 YouTube site. And the music video is much more extensive than what I showed.
I don't see any other hands up, but I did have a question saying, do you have any practical tips for staying optimistic?
Hmm.
Well, my book is optimistic. The three young people that are the protagonists in the book, who promise to do at least one thing to save humanity, succeed in doing a lot of things that could save humanity. They succeed in managing our politics here in this country. They succeed in gathering worldwide the Gen Z generation to band together to make a difference in the world, and they succeed in creating a colony on Mars so that our society will at least be viable somewhere in the universe. And it's one of the interesting things about creating this colony on Mars is that it looks at things that you have to do in a resource poor environment. Some of those things, like the cultured meat and the synthetic lumber, you would use on a Mars settlement, but also good for combating the global crisis. The other thing was, how do you take all of humanity's creations with you? So if we wanted to take the whole digital world of humans' creations, all the books and all the movies and the paintings and the symphonies and everything that we've ever done, and move that to Mars. If we did it with the 1 terabyte hard drives that are the size of a cell phone, but about twice as thick, we're talking about taking 20 Empire State Buildings filled with those hard drives. Well, there's a new technology, DNA data storage. It was started at Harvard in 2012 and is now to the point where you could put the 200 billion terabytes of the humanity archive in a softball-sized package.
Bob and Day, I see your hand up if you want to come off mute.
Yeah, hi, this is Day. I just wanted to briefly comment on the idea that if the human species does not survive, but the planet is populated by robots, perhaps they can do a better job of taking care of the Earth than we have done. It's a wonderful idea, but I ask this question, which is, what incentive would robots have to do that? Robots, do they need oxygen? Do they need photosynthesis? Do they need beauty in the landscape? And on and on and on, all the miraculous things that we get out of living on this beautiful planet. Would robots need those, and would they care? It's sort of I have no answer to it, and perhaps there is no answer to it, but I just wanted to raise the question, something to think about. Thank you.
Well, if robots really do become sentient and they start to appreciate the things that us humans appreciate, a good novel, a good symphony, a good sunset, that could become part of their existence, that they become sentient and they start appreciating those things. So they may very well want to keep a beautiful planet, and they may very well want to keep some of our animal species around that we love to see.
So they become a super species like us, but much, much better than us. That's what you're saying.
Yeah, possible. We just don't know.
We don't.
Okay, I'm not seeing any other questions. I did want to ask, in your book and like storytelling, especially when it comes to activism and fighting for this kind of movement, how do you think storytelling, especially with your book and your other books that you've written, how can we help to bring that message more clearer? And like, how can we spread that message out of raising the awareness of the issue, but also educating and getting the younger generations involved?
Well, if it's a good story, then the readers want to read because it's a good story. And if that good story can educate along the way, then that's one of the benefits. But you get them educated because they're interested in a good story. So that's, people who are thoroughly and completely concerned with all these issues will do the research by themselves. They'll read the nonfiction works. It's the idea of enticing some of those people who are not experts in the field and not devoted activists, that you might turn them into activists. So the books that I created, the STEM books, to teach kids about the universe, were a story. The Stardust mystery, the mystery was, you are made of stardust that was once in the body of Albert Einstein and the last T-Rex. That is a true statement. The book, basically the theme, the story of the book is these kids as teams in a contest, how to band together and figure out what stardust is and how in the world this stardust that was in the body of Albert Einstein is now in me. So by looking at this interesting story, they end up learning all about the creation of the universe and the creation of all of our elements in the formation of stars and the explosion of stars, and then how those elements circulate and enter, and we're made of elements, and how those elements, when we exhale, that carbon dioxide, you're breathing carbon dioxide that was in Albert Einstein right now. So carbon that was in carbon dioxide was in Albert Einstein and was in a T-Rex. So by presenting that sort of thing to kids, hey, they learn stuff and it's an interesting story. So that's kind of what I try to do.
Brad, I see your hand up. Feel free to come off mute.
Yeah, hi. First of all, thanks a lot for this presentation. It's a totally fascinating
You're
subject.
welcome.
And, who knows how this is going to play out. And hopefully we'll find a way to regulate some of this stuff. But I was just curious, some demographers, and you pointed this out too earlier on, that the population is going to crest maybe in 80 years or so and then drop. How do you think that plays into all this and how that affects how this will evolve?
Well, I certainly don't know about the worldwide population. We've got two examples, Japan and the US, where in the US, we now have 1.6 children per female. That's a decaying curve. So we do have two examples where the population is dropping. I don't know what will happen in the rest of the world. I mean, maybe the population will just shift. But of course, it's somewhat self-regulating when you don't have enough food to feed the population. That does regulate it. So I don't know how it will affect the attention to these problems, but if people don't have children, there are two things. One is they may have more time to address the problems. The other thing is they may not worry about them enough. Well, 100 years, that's plenty for me. So who knows?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Feel free to raise your hand or drop it in the chat. I'll give a few moments. And then Zanita said, can you send a notice of when your book comes out? I think you said it comes out in September, and definitely stay up to date on his website too and Instagram.
So I think it's going to be September 9 as the target date. And we are at the point of having decided on the cover, having decided on the layout. And so they're now producing the review copy, and I'll be my team will be reviewing it in August, and we should make the September 9th deadline easily. It's quite a process. Oh,
I don't. Okay. Any other questions? Okay, I'm not seeing any, but I want to say thank you so much, Peter, for joining us today and giving the presentation. Again, this will be recorded, so it will be on our YouTube shortly. And we'll also send out a follow-up email with all of Peter's links and ways to contact him and stay up to date with the book launch. And then we'll also post this in the email as well. And stay tuned for any other upcoming action hours as well. Thank you everyone for attending. And again, thank you, Peter, for giving such a great presentation.
and thank you for having me here to make this presentation. And I need help. I can't do this all by myself. So any of you out there who have good ideas of how to help, please join me in this effort.
All right. Thank you, everybody.
Okay. Thank you.